Hey guys, welcome back for another video. This is our episode 2 breakdown for A Knight of the Seven Kingdoms. Episode 2 just aired this past Sunday night. The title for the episode is Hard Salt Beef, and it's definitely very fitting because it's showing the origination of Dunk, where he comes from compared to where all these other lords at the Ashford tournament, they're all from castles. They're all from privileged lives. He comes from the gutter of King's Landing. He's grown up hard. He's grown up in a rough atmosphere, but still, he's the honorable, honest knight, and that's what this show is going to continue to cover. We're going to be breaking down all of our episode 2 details, all of the Easter eggs. Hit that like button, subscribe to the channel, drop a comment down below. What stood out to you the most, and what are you expecting to happen in episode 3? Episode 3 to me is probably going to kind of set off the cataclysmic events that are going to spiral towards the actual tourney of the seven, which we'll probably get around episode 5 to 6. Let's jump right into it. So episode 2 picks up right where we left off with episode 1. The Ashford tournament looms on the horizon. Dunk is trying to prove to everyone else that he is a knight, but more importantly, he's also trying to prove that to himself. But first, we have to dive deeper in what a knight means in Westeros. For a lot of these people, a knight just means privilege, being knighted, growing up with a master at arms. That's just something that just happened to every single son. But for Dunk, it's been something he's had to work his entire life for. He's still trying to prove it to other people. He's trying to prove it to himself. The episode first opens up. We see some moments from the past between Dunk and Sir Arlen, him raising him growing up, him learning how to fight with Sir Arlen. What you'll notice is, unlike other flashbacks from the original Game of Thrones show, this isn't your typical Westerosi flashback. There's no a grandeur here. It's just showing the truth of the life that Dunk had to live. He had to grow up on hard salt beef. He had to grow up the hard way, learning as a lower class citizen, basically, traveling from city to city, trying to pick up odd jobs as a knight, fighting for other landed knights. So while to many of the lords, to many of the knights around the Seven Kingdoms, being a knight, it's grandeur. It's fantastic. You get praised, they get idolized, but Dunk sees things the way they are. He sees it for the truth. And Sir Arlen's honorable nature contrasts deeply with a lot of the notorious knights that we're going to see throughout this show. We're going to see a lot of knights that don't quite live up to the oaths that they swore to uphold. Think of knights from the original Game of Thrones. Gregor Clegane, Sandor Clegane, Meryn Taint. These were all knights in the Seven Kingdoms. It reminds us the title of knight doesn't necessarily guarantee virtue. But while we're also seeing things, we are seeing things from Dunk's POV. This is from Dunk's point of view when he sees Sir Arlen. When he's telling Egg about Sir Arlen, it is all these great things. He puts him up on this lofty pedestal. He's a great knight. He's an honorable man. And while all those things may be true, to Dunk's point of view, when he sees him giving coin to the man at the inn, he's actually not giving the man coin because he's such a great person, but he's actually paying for a prostitute that he just slept with. So there's a lot more layers to this world. Dunk's just been seeing things through rose-colored lenses, but there's a lot more here. That does not make Arlen a bad man at all. He was a good man, raised him like a son, took care of him, gave him a home with him traveling on the road, gave him a job basically, training him to be a knight for the future going forward. But it just shows there's a lot more layers to these people. As the episode progresses, Dunk starts to peel those layers back, see things for what they are. That's a good thing because he's really going to see what he's also capable of, what his potential is. Then in the next scene, we see the Targaryen princes have arrived. Baelor, the hand of the king, one of the coolest characters we're going to meet in this show, but also more importantly, one of the coolest characters from the entire Game of Thrones book series. Maekar's there, Aaron, they all enter the tournament grounds, and they have the flags, they have the big procession. Think back to the original episode 1 of the original Game of Thrones show. Robert Baratheon shows up with all of his knights. There's thousands of people. They bring a whole circus with them, basically. That's what's happening here. They're all coming to Ashford because don't forget, the Targaryens, when they had dragons, they would never go to tournaments, but dragons are all now dead. So they kind of have to make their way around the Seven Kingdoms, keeping the peace, meeting with people, basically marketing themselves, because we just had a civil war about 10 to 15 years before this show. They want to keep the peace. Baelor, great hand of the king, the second most powerful person in the Seven Kingdoms next to the king. He's a smart guy. He makes sure to give every single lord, land, the attention that they deserve. all with the goal, all with the prospect of trying to keep the peace here. Now, when Dunk was first there, he kind of felt out of his element. He was surrounded by lords, ladies, but now that the Targaryens have arrived, now that the dragons have arrived, there's been a massive power dynamic shift within Ashford because it's not just lords and ladies. Now there's nobles, now there's royalty that has arrived on the scene, centuries deep influence. And now, heading back into our flashback scenes, we see the injury, the wound that probably actually did Sir Arlen in. He has that deep gash on his right forearm. It gets worse throughout the flashbacks. He noticeably starts getting weaker. Every single scene starting to slouch on the horse. So that's probably leading up to right where episode 1 picked up, and that's where Dunk is burying him a foot in the ground. The big issue where episode 1 left off was Dunk's knighthood. He was told by the master there at Ashford that he had to find someone who could corroborate that they knew Sir Arlen, and thus he would be able to be recognized as a knight. Someone has to vouch for him. He went to a couple different lords throughout episode 1. They all said they didn't remember Sir Arlen, and that picks up exactly where they left off here. It kind of makes a little bit of a comical scene. He goes from lord to lord telling all these great stories. No one knows what the heck he's talking about. He goes to Lord Tyrell. Lord Tyrell spits on the ground, says he doesn't remember the man. So he has to keep going from person to person. Egg says it's starting to demean them both because they kind of look pathetic walking through the camp doing this, but really they have no option. Someone has to recognize him, and he needs a full suit of armor. Those are the 2 boxes he has to check off in order to ride in the tournament. So while he's doing this, he does make his way over to the horse stables. The Targaryens have just arrived. That's where he meets Aerion Targaryen, who basically thinks he's a servant, tells him to take his horse. He says he's not actually a servant, he's a knight. Aaron kind of sneers at Dunk, says that knighthood has fallen on sad days. This is setting him up to be the protagonist of this show. He's not necessarily a bad guy, but he's kind of a deuce. The show is setting things up that way. It's going to get worse episode to episode. He has a little bit of the dragon madness right now. In his personal mind, he does think he is going to be a dragon reborn at some point. That's a common theme with Targaryens. A lot of them get dragon dreams. That does drive a lot of them crazy, but it also makes them forget their own mortality because they start to think that they're a lot more than they are, but they no longer have the dragons. At the end of the day, they're just men. Aaron walks away. His horse gets a little out of control, kicks one of the servants in the face. Dunk calms the horse down. What they're showing here, Dunk likes animals. Dunk's just a regular person. It shows the softness he has, really setting him up as a really good person going forward. He's not just a knight. He's someone who wants to live up to the ideals of what a knight should mean in the 7 kingdoms. He doesn't want to go to violence. He's not quick to swing the sword. He's slow to do so. He's a genuinely good guy. Takes the horse into the stables, and that's where he comes across, which would be really a dream come true for him. He makes 2 of the Kingsguard. Really like the uniforms here, like the armor. They have the white armor, which is actually the way that the original books describe it being. Not gold, not silver/white, but it is white from head to toe. He makes Sir Roland Craycall and Sir Donald of Duskendale, and really he is awestruck here. These are the most famous knights in the 7 kingdoms, the best of the best. This is the special forces. This is the Delta Force guys of the night world. But really, this show kind of brings those tropes down because it shows at the end of the day, they have all these accolades, all of these titles, but the truth never quite lives up to it. They're just normal people. The very first thing that Sir Craycall asks is where he could go to take a dump, basically. So they're bringing it down to earth. These are just regular people, and they have all these titles, but at the end of the day, it's just a guy in some armor. And while he's talking to them, they do pick up on the fact that he's going to be lowborn here. They can smell him, they say. They can tell from the way that he talks. Dunk says that he's not a highborn person. He basically comes from the streets. Sir Donald of Duskendale thinks that he kind of has something in common with him. So he takes that moment to kind of build Dunk up, saying that he comes from crabbers and he got his title by doing what crabbers do. Dunk takes this as an example of if you work hard, if you strive for what you want, it's something that you can attain if you're a good person if you work hard, promotions and things will come your way. But everyone knows that that's not really the way the real world works. As he's talking to Egg later, Egg kind of laughs at him. He lets him know Sir Duskendale's family is one of the wealthiest families. They own half of the crab fleet in the Seven Kingdoms. So while he might not be a high lord, he's not the example for Dunk because they don't come from the same position. But still, nonetheless, you can still look at the bright side. There's still people looking up to the others above them and what they're capable of. They both want to get there. They still have women to strive, but no matter where you are, there's always someone under you. Sir Duskendale thought he was in the same position as Dunk. Dunk thought that was an example for him, but it's really not. Anyways, Dunk continues to try his search to find someone who can corroborate that Sir Arlen was a knight. But really, what that talk with Sir Duskendale does is it kind of builds him up something. He has to go do something. He has to take his future into his own hands. So, unlike the book, in the book, he comes across the Targaryen families, doesn't know who he's talking to till he actually get introduced to them. In the show, he sneaks kind of into the castle there at Ashford, and he finds the Targaryens. He sees them having a private conversation. Maker spots him, tells him to come forward. And that's what we get one of the cooler lines, one of the cooler interactions. Obviously, Dunk speaking with all of the Targaryen princes. Baelor's there, Maker's there, Lord Ashford's there. He says that he is on a mission to find someone who would know his late lord, Sir Arlen of Pennytree. Lord Ashford doesn't want to hear it. His servant doesn't want to hear it. Maker definitely does not want to hear it. They are setting him up to be a douche. He's not a douche. He's just hard to like. He's not a bad person. He's just a hard person. Kind of think of him like this show's version of Stannis Baratheon. He sees things the way they are. They're black and white. There's no gray. It's all about honor, doing the right thing. He doesn't want to hear anything else. Not a bad guy, just a hard guy. Hard to love, but still a just, firm person. Baelor, though, you guys are going to love Baelor. Those who have read the book, you know he's one of the best, most honest, legitimate characters in all of the Game of Thrones shows because he actually cares about people. He has a genuine interest for someone being a Targaryen, being a highborn lord, being the second most powerful person in the Seven Kingdoms. He's the hand of the king. He's the highest heir. He's the next ruler of the Seven Kingdoms when his father passes because he's the oldest of the sons. He has all the power there, but yet still he takes the time to remember people. So Dunk starts telling him about Sir Arlen of Pennytree, and you can see the kind of the thoughts twirling in his head, and he ultimately ends up cooperating. He knows who Sir Arlen is, remembers what he did at an old joust, and that he dehorsed Sir Garland Lannister of Casterly Rock, but he tells him it's the Grey Lion. Who was the Grey Lion? He wants to test Dunk here to make sure that he knows the right story, because only this squire of a knight would have actually heard the story. And of course, he says that it is Sir Garland Lannister. He corroborates it, and he tells Lord Ashford he sees no reason why he should not be able to ride in the tourney. Dunk gets his blessing, but he also lets him know, since he's not a true-born son of Sir Alan, he cannot use his coat of arms. He'll have to come up with one of his own. Dunk, in a humorous way, lets him know that he will do it. And he also tells Maekar that he hopes his sons aren't dead. That's another key to the story here. While he's there spying, well, not really spying on them, trying to get to find them, he hears that Maekar's sons are missing and that they might be dead. So he tells him he hopes they're not dead. Maekar doesn't like that. Maekar asks Baelor, why do you remember some Hedge night? And he tells him he remembers every single night just in case he had to meet them on the jousting field. But it's setting up the character development. Maker's not mad at him. He's just curious. But Baelor remembers everyone. He doesn't care if you're a lord, a servant. He makes it a point to have a personal relationship with people. And that's something that's very rare. So this show is doing a really good job of showing lords that are haughty, that are douches, that don't care about the lowly people. Think of all the interactions with Dunk. Think of Tyrell. Think of Dondarrion. They all scoffed at him, even though he's claiming to be a knight. They don't care about him because he's a hedge knight. He's not someone that can help them, so they don't care to actually get to know him or to hear what he has to say. But you also get the good side of lords. You get Lionel Baratheon, who obviously is really taken to Dunk, likes him personally, and then you get Baelor, the highest ranked person at the Ashford tourney, the second most powerful person in the kingdom next to the king, and he took time to grant him his request. So you see both sides of the scope. But now he has to get a coat of arms. He goes to see Tansel Too Tall. She says that she will paint him a coat, but she wants to know what he wants. He doesn't know. Egg recommends the big elm tree. That's the tree they slept under. He loves it, and he says to give him a shooting star. That's the way that episode ended. The shooting star, hopefully because they saw it, is going to be the object that brings them some luck going forward. And this is a pretty good scene between them both, because he says that she probably thinks he's dumb. She says all men are fools, all men are knights. So men can be foolish, men can be brave. The same person can be a fool and yet brave at the same time. And technically, that's from one of the plays that I think Florian the Fool was the play that she was doing. And the way that that line reads is, when in regards to a woman, or when in reference to a woman, which is obviously actually the situation that is going on here. And we know the importance of the falling star motive. That's a subtle nod to the Targaryen's dragon symbolism, but also the importance that Dunk potentially is going to have to play on the events going forward in the Seven Kingdoms. We're not giving out any spoilers, but obviously we've all heard Dunk's name from the original Game of Thrones show. He's going to be a very powerful, important person in this world's history. So now we go to another cool scene. That's the tug of war, the crowd festivities, everything that's going on. Dunk and Egg, they're having some drinks, drinking some mead. Lionel Baratheon sees him. You gotta love Lionel Baratheon. Every time he's on the screen, he completely captures the screen. Such a good job acting, and it really captures the Lionel from the book because he's such a cool character. He asked Dunk to join him in war, and obviously it's just tug of war, but it's setting up the rebelliousness that we get from the Baratheons. That's going to follow this show, and it also leads directly into the original Game of Thrones show. But he needs him to help him win the tug of war. This is a lighthearted moment. It humanizes the world building that the episode's doing. Even the noble courts, they have games, they have laughable challenges. You can have fun, but of all the people there, Lionel sees Dunk. Yes, he's big, he's strong, but he remembers him. He's a guy that he likes. He wants to keep him close to his circle. And it's kind of setting up a little foreshadowing going forward, because the Baratheons' presence at Ashford, that's a heavy influence on the politics going forward in this world when it comes to powerhouses, because we know that it's ultimately the Baratheons that lead the rebellion that overthrows House Targaryen. So they had some fun doing that. And if you think back to the Baelor scene, you might be, so when you look at the House of the Dragon, you see all of the white-haired Targaryens, but Baelor has like either like a mix of black and white, dark brown hair. So you're probably wondering, how the heck is he a Targaryen? It's actually because in the House of the Dragon, it's actually 6 kingdoms. Dorne has not yet joined the fold. Dorne has never been conquered. They've been invaded. There's been multiple wars. They have issues with the Tyrells. They have issues with the Baratheons because they share a border there, but they've never been conquered. What actually brings them into the 7 kingdoms, what makes the 7 kingdoms the actual literal 7 kingdoms, is a marriage alliance. So the Dornish marry into the Targaryen family, and that's why Baelor has black hair, is because his mother is actually Dornish. So we have the opening joust here. We have the festivities kicking off, and this is kind of an important moment for Dunk because he really has to reflect on his own ability as a knight. He's watching people that have been training their entire life how to joust, how to fight. They all had master at arms. He didn't have any of that. He grew up on a horse riding with Sir Arlen, who was not a great fighter himself, but yet still taught him to be an honorable fighter. The tourney begins, lances shatter, knights fall. Egg and Dunk both watch this wide-eyed. Egg loves it. Dunk, it is starting to set in. He doesn't know if he can even win a fight. Don't forget, there's a lot riding here, because if he loses a fight, he has to ransom the armor. So the armor goes to the knight who unhorsed him, and they get to ransom it back to Dunk. He has no money. He's literally doing everything. In a previous scene, Dunk has to sell one of the horses in order to raise some money to buy some armor from Steely Pate. Cool scene in the book, cool scene in the show. Basically word for word from the book with the show, but he has the armor getting made. If he loses a fight, he can't buy anything from the ransom. He'd be broke after that. Has to sell one of the horses just to raise the funds to buy the armor and also pay for his coat of arms for the shield here. So it's kind of a reflection moment for them. And then you also see Baelor's son here, Valar Targaryen. His appearance looks very similar to Baelor. They have the darker hair. And Dunk says that he would put his money on him because he sees a prince, a knight, a prince trained to fight his entire life. He has to be good. He has to be a dashing knight. Egg, who's seen a lot of different knights, let's say, that's what he says. He's seen all of the good knights. That's what he said in episode 1. He says, not likely. So just because you're born famous, rich, with a great name does not necessarily mean you're going to win fights. Keep that in mind going forward. Sometimes the hype doesn't quite live up to the reality. So Dunk starts to reflect here on Sir Arlen's lack of legacy. Thinking back to when he died, he got buried a foot in the ground. No one knows where he was buried but Dunk. He had no procession. He had no family. He had a nephew who died during the Blackfire Rebellion, so no one knows his name. He had to find one person who actually knew who he was besides himself. So he starts to actually reflect on the legacy. He starts to question his own worth here. This is an emotional core of the episode. The Hedge Knight realizing legacy is not guaranteed, even for people who are good, noble in heart. You being a great, good, hardworking person doesn't mean anyone is going to appreciate that and that anyone is going to remember you. So this kind of mirrors the Game of Thrones philosophical moments on what people's legacy is. How does Ned Stark's honor in life, how that becomes a benchmark for others going forward. And then the episode actually closes with Dunk and Egg sitting around the fire. You think this is kind of a reflecting moment for Dunk, thinking that he has no shot to win here, reflecting on the lack of proper training he's had compared to everybody else. They didn't even want Hedge Knights there. There's no Hedge Knights. He's a Hedge Knight. The only reason he's even able to compete is because the prince, Baelor, granted him his request. And he's going up against all these famous lords. There's princes that are going to be taking the field. He has to fight them. He thinks he really doesn't know what he's doing. So you start to think he's doubting himself, starting to question what he can do. But actually, he closes the episode with a beautiful comment that he will show them what Sir Arlen's teaching is wrong. So he's saying he is starting to believe in himself. People don't remember Sir Arlen, but he'll make sure that his name never dies. All in all, really fun episode, really well done. These characters are epitomizing what you read from the books. Well done show. Practically verbatim, word for word out of the books, out of the comics. Whatever version you read, this is spot on. And the world feels lived in. It's a perfect adaptation so far. Having a lot of fun watching this show. Can't wait for episode 3. Things are going to start spiraling, speeding up. I love that they're, not really going past 34 minutes. Usually I love longer episodes, but these are very short novellas, 100 to 120, 150 pages for the 3 novellas each. So there's not that much stuff there because they're supposed to be short. There's no reason to add any more to these stories that are perfect the way they are. That's what they're giving us. Anyways, guys, hit the like button, subscribe to the channel, drop a comment below. What are your thoughts? What did you appreciate from this episode? What do you think is going to happen in episode 3? And thanks for watching.